Good evening, everybody. How are we tonight? Okay, tonight I am mixing down a very special record by an artist called Fressi Groover. She's from California, LA if I'm correct. And yeah, it's a great little track. Please be kind. It's always hard to let somebody like myself critique your music, specifically live on YouTube. And we've got a lot of followers now, so we're here to learn. We're here to help each other. And if you've got anything constructive to say, please say it. You know, and if you think there's something that is bothering you, please let me know. And as you may know, we've had a few problems with the audio. I'm watching the chat. There is a bit of a delay, but I'm going to be watching it. Please let me know about the levels and everything else, because it is live and it's hard to concentrate on mixing a record whilst looking at everything else and remembering to turn microphones on and off whilst playing the music. So this is Fressi Groover, Fade Away. Like I said, it's a melodic techno track, so let's have a listen. Okay, great track. She's obviously a very talented producer, and her music's fantastic. So the first thing we're going to look at is the mix. And like I said, you know, we're here to constructively critique so we can all learn. And the key things that jump out to me are the mix is a little bit muddy and lacks a little bit of punch and aggression, which a lot of this music has. The second thing that happened is when I go to the bus, there was a limiter on there, okay, and it sounded a bit distorted. But I turned it off before. But the problem you've got is the levels are at -6. So if I listen to this track with the fader at 0, I'm clipping. So the problem you've got with that is you can't just turn it down, because what's happening is those levels are going in really heavy pre-fader. So what that means is doesn't matter where the fader's at, it's going in like that pre-fader. So if you turn it down, you think, yeah, okay, well, I'll turn it down, it doesn't look red. The problem you've got is all the plugins are going to be clipping because of the level that's going into it, which is why we gain stage. And it's not just a case of turning things down like that. And if I'm not going to go into gain staging tonight because I want to get into mixing, and you can watch any of my videos on that. But you need to watch this, because a lot of the time digital clipping can mess your mix up. So make sure that you gain stage properly. The key thing for me is sorting out the bottom end and the punch. So I'm going to start off with the kick. So let's have a look at the kick. It sounds like quite a nice kick, but it seems to be lacking a bit of punch. I'm going to put the bass in and see how that sounds with it. Just turning everything off. Okay. So one of the kicks was off. So what I've done is got the bit that wasn't off and just put it back in. I'm going to listen to it in the mix with the bass to see if it's the right kick, because it feels like it's not round enough in the bottom end. problem is you've got all these crossfades being added automatically to your track, and this is where it usually is, and for some reason it's not on, so I'm not quite sure why it's doing that. Somebody uses about 4 different doors. I'm always trying to figure out, but I was quite sure that that's what it was. So every time we duplicate, it automatically creates a fade. So yeah. Anyway, I'm going to keep that in for now. Let's listen to the bass. First thing I'm going to do is turn the kick down. I'm going to gain stage it. Okay, let's see if we can delete that. That's a bit annoying. So just get rid of those crossfades. I could hear something before and I thought it was the bass, but obviously it was the kick. That's better. So I'm just going to try a different kick. This is a kick that I got off Mike from Camouflage. It's just a bit tougher for this kind of music. And I think it just punches through a bit more. There's always a better kick. I'm just going to keep that one in for now. And I'll get the bottom end right, and then I'm going to work from the lead downwards and then mix everything to that, because we just want this track to have a bit more aggression and a bit more punch. Again, you can see that it's clipping again. You need to gain stage everything. So the way you do it is fader at 0, no plugins on, and get it to the level that you want it. So I use a lot of analog emulation, so I do -12. Sometimes it might be 0 if I'm clipping to 0 to get it really loud. In this case, I'm going to take it down to about -10, everything, because any plugins you've got on, it's then clipping it into those plugins. So yeah, the bottom's rolling now. We've got that punch on the bottom end. I'm going to sidechain that bass a little bit. I'm going to use LFO tool. I'm going to do it in isolation so I can hear what it's doing. Because a lot of the time, people sidechain things and they're taking part of the energy out of the bass. So I like to isolate it, listen to the bottom end and make sure that the kick's coming through, but we're not losing too much bass. And that's why I don't like kickstart, because if you look here, this is taking all this bass out of here, which is might not be what you want. You know, sometimes it's better down like this. So you let the kick through, and then you've still got this bass here, but it all depends how it sounds and how it feels. So I do that in isolation. Could you hear how the kick was still coming through, but it was allowing a bit more bass? And this is the shape of the LFO tool here. And this is one of the key things, you know, especially this kind of music when you've got a lot of bass and kick around the same frequency in the low end. So I shape it in isolation like that. And then I work from there. So that's really the foundation of the track. Is it punching? Can I feel it? Have I got the bounce of the track? Yes, I have. So I'm going to work on the next thing now. Okay, so I changed the attack on the compressor. You had a slow attack. I want it to cut down as soon as the kick comes in. Now, I'm going to use the LFO tool for this again, because the LFO tool, what happens is, the attack of a compressor is how quickly it takes to reach full compression, which means that the really first bit of it comes through. The transient of whatever you're trying to sidechain is still coming through. So with the LFO tool, what that means is if we look at this, we can turn it down, but we make sure, because it's a time-based thing, quarter, that the volume's turned down before the kick comes in on it. So let's listen to that. It's just a bit cleaner. That sounds a bit phasey, so I'm going to put on a Pro Q4. It sounds okay though. So I'm just going to dip it a bit in the middle so I can hear the punch of the bass coming on the offbeat to really help it punch in the centre. So I was just adding a bit of EQ then. I was taking out the bottom end. In fact, do that in stereo. And I was taking out the mid section of it so that the offbeat bass with the sub in it was really punching through, because I want to feel that in the club, and we are making club music. So yeah, that definitely helps it punch a bit more. Hey Fressi. Yep, so it sounds really good. I hope you don't mind. I changed the kick just to give it a bit more smack. And so if I was mixing this properly, I can hear there's a few different synths in this bass synth here. So I'm going to call this one sub. And I can hear there's a couple of synths and maybe some widening and maybe some delays, and it's creating a bit of a phasey issue, which I think is taken away from the transient of the sound. And I think it could be better. So normally, if I was mixing this down properly, I'd say to the client, okay, send me them separately. You've got to be careful, you know, about when you're doing that, or you've got more than two synths the same. If you EQ one, you get phase shift, and then the whole things start phasing together, and it's got to be very mindful of that. But it sounds all right for now. Let's get a bit of a backbeat going. I need to feel the energy, so I need that to come through. I'll probably put a bigger reverb on than that. But for now, it's just giving me a vibe. And now I can start working from the top down, from the most important things. And this is the way that I would make a track as well. I always start with the lead and then work everything around that, because that's how it should work. But obviously in electronic music, the kick and the bass are the foundation of the track. So when I'm mixing, I like to get these right. Once I feel them, then I can turn my speakers down and use my ears a little bit. So please say hello, everyone. Ask any questions you want. I'm here to answer questions as well. Just to let you know, I know what you've done. You've created a drum bus, so you've sent them all to this audio track. I don't use that. And the way I do it is I create groups like this. And I just find it easier, so then I can treat the group. And if somebody asks me for stems, which a lot of labels will do because they like to have their own master engineers, for a stem mix, then you've got the drums as one stem, you've got everything else. As long as it works, that's all that matters. So let's get a lead up. Okay, just a quick one. Was that feeding back then to you guys? Because I had the speakers on and I left the microphone on by mistake. So I just need to be mindful to turn the mic off when it's feeding back, if it's feeding back. So this is the main synth. So everything has to work around this. So what I want to do is I want to get this right. But everything I put onto this, I'm going to level match it. I don't want to add saturators. I don't want things to turn the volume up. And the reason for that is afterwards I want to turn things on and off, and I still want them to be the same volume. And if you put something on something and it just makes it louder, it automatically sounds better because it's louder. But when you level match it, a lot of the time you can be damaging it, and most of the time you are. So always level match. Okay, so the saturator's nice, it's distorting it, it's affecting the transients of the sound. You know, is that what you're looking for? I might want to use a bit more dry wet on this, just so the transients come through a little bit more. Okay, I've level matched that and I like what it's doing to it. It is better with the transient coming through, so I've just done it on 55% with the dry wet. And then I'll just go through these and make sure that the delay and the reverb are right, because they do seem like there's a lot going on there that was muddying up the mix before. Okay, so you had your reverb on. It was nice, but it was a bit muddy. And what you'd done is you'd rolled off all the top end and the brightness. And because you don't have lots of hi-hats in this, I think it's important to keep the top end in the reverb for something like this. I think it makes it wider. It definitely makes it sound wider when you roll off the top end. And I don't think you need under 340. Under 100 hertz, I try not to have anything under that. Just the kick in the bass really under 120 hertz. Obviously there might be other items like toms and stuff like that, but I think keep the brightness, think of the mix. And this might be your room, but for me, the mix just opened up, just like it felt a lot wider. So I think that sounds good for the lead. Again, I'm just gain staging everything because it's going to be clipping going into whatever it's going into digitally, and we don't want that. And that sound's already got reverb on it, so I don't think it needs extra reverb. And the other thing is we've got the reverb coming from the main synth. Okay, so I'm mixing into the main synth because that's the lead one. This is going to be like lead two. So I don't want to muddy up the mix. I want things to punch, you know, and by adding like kind of saturation to everything and reverb to everything, you create mud, which then hides your transients. So you need to be very mindful of that. So a lot of the time when I'm mixing, you know, I'll take all the plugins off, level all the faders, and if your mix isn't like kind of 90% there, then there's a problem with what you've got in your mix. And what I'm doing here is I'm listening, I'm sidechaining it to how I think it works better in the mix. I'm not just slapping on a sidechain and making it do something where it's all the same. Like I do sometimes, but for this sound, I want the kick to come through all the time. The kick wasn't coming through, so I'm ducking everything to the kick so the transients come through, and I'm going to try and make it loud. afterwards, after I've got the mix right. I like the position of it in the mix. It is a little bit slightly conflicting with the top of the bass. It hides it a little bit, but that's okay because it's not in all the time. It kind of takes over. The width is okay. I quite like it. It's a bit wider. So I'm going to keep that the way it is. And I'll just A-B your mix. Wow, straight away we're slamming it. And all we've done is take stuff out, take stuff off. You had your crossfades before, which needed looking at, which I'll also need to do on the bass actually. Actually, they might be alright on the bass because it's ducking it to the kick. Let's have a listen to the lead actually, if we can hear the fades. You need to sort that out actually. I'm actually sidechaining this main riff anyway, so it's not going to make a big difference. So we couldn't hear it like we could hear it on the kick. So let's listen to the next instrument. Sorry about that. Yeah, got to gain stage this. Okay, I heard these before. Let's gain stage all these. They just sound like they're not quite grooving with the track. They're really good sounds, but they just feel like they aren't necessarily grooving with it. So I'll try and EQ them up and then maybe look at them for the position that they are. Might just be a bit busy, that's all. Look quite static to be quite honest, quite on the groove. See, that one there's a bit late, but let's have a listen. Okay, the first thing that I hear is loads of bass in it. So I want to get rid of that. We don't need all that because we've already got bass in the track. And whilst it's in the track and the kick's in, so what I might do is we need to EQ it out. So I'm going to listen to that round and round. Make it fit the mix. Again, you're just adding all these bottom frequencies that are going to take away from the punch, the feeling of the kick and the bass in the club. And all that matters is how it sounds in the mix. Okay, I'm going to look at the timing on this. So I think it's working better with the groove now. I hope you like it. We are more in the production. And what's happening is I'm dancing to the record and it was coming in and it's just making my body move a little bit like, oh, what's going on there? And I just think it's a little bit more obvious, but it kind of, my body feels a bit better as I'm dancing to it. So yes, there's that. I'm also it's quite central, so I'm going to try and make it a bit wider to see what happens. I don't think you need the delays in it. Remember, delays and reverb and saturation are all really good for helping glue your track together, and they're really good for creating the glue, for just filling up the gaps and giving things a position in the mix, which is fine. But with something like this, we really want to keep our transients. We really want them to punch, so we don't want anything getting in the way of them, and that's what the delay is going to do. And it cuts through the mix better without it. Instead of a delay with this, a reverb might be better. So I'm going to look at reverb and making it a bit wider. And feel free to ask me any questions, anyone. Okay, so what I was doing there was I was adding reverb instead of a delay because you couldn't really hear the delay, but it was muddying up the transients in the mix. So what I did was I added the reverb in a chain, which is like a send if you're not an Ableton user, and I was side chaining it to the actual synth, which is pretty standard stuff. But what I was doing was I was listening to the reverb of that sound and how it was interacting with the reverb of the lead sound. And I liked the tail of it. I thought there was space for it in the mix to have a really long tail on the reverb, but I didn't want it to be as much when I want the transients to come through. So obviously I sidechained it to itself. And what I'm listening for is the tail of the reverb and the frequencies of it working in conjunction with, or making sure it's not blocking over the reverb from the high lead. And for me, that sounds miles better. Good evening, Brad. I hope you're good, or good morning. A fellow Californian. Okay, let's listen to the next. So I think we can all agree it's definitely punching a lot more. You know, it's the same parts that Fressi put in there. All I've done is take stuff out. I've gain staged it and I've changed the kick. because felt like it needed a bit more punch. And a mix is all about balance. The fader is the number one tool you use, and what it's the levels is the key to it, and that's down to experience. Referencing, obviously, I can't use references when I'm live on YouTube. I also get pulled because of copyright, but obviously, I'm just feeling the punch and balance in it, and it's easy for me to say this because I've got a great room. I've got a well-treated room. I mix and master all day long, and I've got great speakers, and I've got a great stereo field, a great depth of field. So it's easy for me to say that. But if your listening environment isn't right, that could possibly be the problem. Obviously, those fades weren't helping. So let's get some high end in there, shakers. You know, they're not as aggressive, those shakers now. And I don't think you needed the delay. Again, we're looking for we're looking for the 16s and the rhythm of it. And just by adding a delay on it, I think you're actually you can, when you're A-Bing it, you can hear the difference. You've added loads of extra stuff in there. And what it's done is it kind of killed your mix. So what I would say to anybody is, like in week 9 of my mentorship, what I do is I get my clients to come. Brad, who's one of them in the chat, and on week 9, I get them to come back to me with a mix, okay, with a new track, and apply everything that they've learned. I want 2 versions. The first version has no plugins on at all. You can have a filter if you're filtering up and down, a bit of low cut, okay, and reverb on your lead, and maybe the clap, and if there's a vocal, there's a vocal. That's it, nothing else. And with a step bounce, and then they come with their mix, and you'll find that 95% of the time they're virtually similar, besides what you do on the drum bus and maybe a bit of distortion here. But what that shows you is what you put into the mix, but also what it teaches them people is they've got to get the mix right before adding anything else. And then what they do is they use less effects, less delays, less reverbs, because they're thinking about, okay, well, I've got the reverb on lead 1, I've got the reverb on the vocal, so can I hear this reverb on this sound, and how's it interacting with everything else? It's really important. Like with the snare, then I was like EQing the reverb to fit the mix. I'm not of the school of thought that you should use the same reverb on all the drums, maybe on all the percussion. I think, like, in this kind of music, a lot of the snares have a big reverb like this one does, and I want it to cut through the mix. So I don't want it to be the same as like a drum loop if I had one. So I may mess this up a little bit more in a bit. I think that's everything in the track besides the vocal. Let's just put the effects in, see how they sound. Sorry. So what I just said was the effects group. You need to go through all the sounds, gain stage them all, level match them to the track, and put them in the position for the mix. I don't have time for that in this quick session, but that lead has been bugging me. And even though we got it in time, there's a big delay on it. And you had a delay on top of a delay, and all you're doing is adding mud in that's killing your transients. And I'm going to try and get a quick fix for that. Transient Designer. I don't know if I'm using the plugins you have, Fressi, but I will finish this track off for you on Zoom, as I do with all the people who let me mix it on YouTube. Okay. Again, I'm going to have to gain stage everything. I'm going to rush this through because we're running out of time. Sorry about that, everyone. Again, it's got reverb on it. You don't need to put anything else on this. Okay, I see you drop the level before the drop, but you lift it up. I just feel like it needs to go down a little bit more. Okay, I think it's rocking. I think it's a different track altogether. I'm just going to add the drums quickly, get the mix going, and then add the vocals in, because the vocals are pretty good already. Any questions, anyone? Okay, so the key to this lesson is less is more. You know, gain stage properly. That could have been creating a lot of distortion. You know, get your mix right without any delays or reverbs on, besides maybe the lead. And you can see, like, listen to it now, the difference between the two. Okay, let's listen to the vocals. A mix like this would probably take me half a day, and I would probably go back and forward to the client to change a few things. But the lesson to be learned is obviously less is more, and don't just plonk on saturation and reverbs and delays, because they're going to mess your mix up. So let's have a listen to the vocals. Okay, sorry if you were getting feedback then. So, yeah, welcome back, Fressi. I know you had to shoot off quickly, but basically, you're masking your mix with loads of reverbs and loads of delays, and we need to teach you how to sidechain to them. Loads of saturation. You know, the biggest thing is this. If you listen to it now to before. The key thing is now it's really, really punching and slamming, like your references and like any other track. And all I've done is change the kick. All I've done is take off reverbs, take off delays, stop the clipping, which might have been creating problems, get rid of loads of saturation, because you're adding harmonics in. It's all about transients. We want this music to really, really punch through. I have turned your snare up a little bit. I thought it needed it. If you don't like that, that's a preference thing. And again, I'm just taking stuff off, like taking the delay off this vocal. But what I would do is I would put these in a chain and I would side chain them to the vocal, so they weren't in the space of the vocal and only afterwards. So we don't have enough time for that because we've been on this for almost an hour and a half now. But we've gone through everything. This is going to be on YouTube for people to watch afterwards. Any questions, anyone, before we kind of wrap it up in a bit? Do you like how it's changed, Fressi? So the point here is I would probably spend another few hours on this track, you know, getting it right. But the key was take less is more in this instance. Get your mixes right without loads of reverbs and delays, then add them on and turn them on and off in the mix to see if they're bringing anything to the party or if they're mudding it up. And what was happening, all your transients were being killed by all these reverbs, these delays, the wrong kick, and the level of things really. Too much saturation, too much reverb, too much delay. And that could be your listening environment, it could be your room. But your track's fantastic. It's really, really good. I've got a problem here if anybody knows what it is. There was an error writing the file, so I don't know whether that is saving or not. But it's definitely slamming a lot more. The transients coming through, the punch is there, and there was a lot of gain staging, which I don't really want to do in something like this, but it needed doing. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. Any questions, anybody? Okay, another listen again to it before and after. I think it's definitely punching. Hope you like it. If you're watching this after the event, please leave some comments. And I hope you enjoyed it. And thank you, Fressi, for allowing us to mix your track live. I know there's a lot of criticism when we're doing this with people, but we're all here to learn, and thank you. So I hope you all enjoyed it. If you want me to mix down your track, please email me info@subtonemusicacademy.com. The link will be in the description. So will Fressi's Instagram. Hit her up, give her a follow. She's obviously a very talented artist, and I think you're going to hear big things from her. So good evening.